What up, race fans? It's that time of week. The Canadian GP is here. A race that is in our time zone. We love that. We don't have to wake up at 5 in the morning this weekend. It's a good opportunity for us to actually enjoy the event. We're excited to have you with us today. We're here to talk strategy and Q&A for the Canadian GP. And before we get into it, for those that have not been here or to one of these shows before, some quick introduction. My name is Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of GridRival. With me today, I have Michael Ursinoli, our CTO, Ryan Booth, our Director of Business Operations, and William Laddie, Principal Software Engineer. Also, a reminder, if it's your first time, a reminder to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss these in the future. We do send out push notifications, but sometimes people don't always get those. So if you want to make sure that you always get in on the show, make sure to do that. Also, find us on Discord. Maybe Mike, you could post a Discord link in here.
Sure.
I don't think everybody is in our Discord yet. So we have a very active Discord. I think there's now 6,000 or 7,000 GridRival members in there. Always an active community to answer questions and talk strategy. So let's get into it. Quick recap of driver salaries since the last race. Fairly even spread across the board, which I think we start to see more and more at this point in the season. You had 4 drivers go up almost the full amount. Gasly, Hulkenberg, and Bortoleto went up $2 million. Fernando Alonso up 1.9. Isaac Hadjar 1.4. I don't know where that guy's ceiling is, but I continually am surprised that he has not hit it yet. He's got to be getting close. Liam Lawson up 1.1. Charles Leclerc up 900K. Russell 700K. Piastri 600K. Franco Colapinto 100,000. No one stayed flat after the last week, or after the last race. On the downside, a lot more big swings on the downside. We have 4 drivers go down the maximum amount. So you have Verstappen, Albon, Antonelli, and Esteban Ocon all down the full $2 million. Lance Stroll down 1.9. The Stroller coaster has an all-time low, 6.7 million. It's time to get on, baby. In Canada. Yeah. Ollie Behrman down 1.8 million. Carlos Sainz 1.4. Lando Norris down 0.9, 900K. Hamilton down 700K. Sonoda down 200. That brings us to our constructor list. Kick Sauber had a heck of a weekend. Up $2.7 million. V-Carb up 1.3. Alpine up 1.1. Were those 3 on our bingo card? I don't think so. Were they on anybody's?
Yeah, I think it's I'm trying to remember it now, but I think we were talking about the strategy for a stake was to go cheap constructor. William, you brought that up?
The bull case for Sauber was other people have problems and they don't.
Yeah,
and that's basically what happens. That and a little bit of pace from Hulkenberg, which he's fairly consistently not last recently, but yeah, other people had problems. They didn't. One of the Astons didn't even start the race, which that's like an instant bonus for Sauber. And I don't think this is going to last, but every now and then you strike gold.
Let's say McLaren stayed flat. Mercedes up 900. Ferrari up 700. On the losing side, Williams down 2.3. Aston Martin down 1.6. Red Bull 1.5 down. Haas down 1.3. Ryan, do we have tiers today?
Yep, I got tiers. I came up with some tier
Okay,
names.
well, hold on one sec. I got to. Oh, there they are. So for those, maybe you've been on the show before, but you haven't been over the last couple of races. We changed the format just because the amount of Q&A volume we were getting about asking about specific lineups just was becoming unmanageable in a 1-hour time frame. So what we do now is we have broken down all the drivers on the grid into a handful of tiers. Looks like 6 tiers this week. And we kind of debate which is the worst of the tier. Like what's in each driver tier of kind of both skill, but it's mostly centered around their fantasy price. Which are the ones that have the most upside, the most likelihood in the coming events to perform well. And then we're going to go through it that way, which usually gets us to about 20 20 to 30 minutes left for Q&A. Do start getting your questions in if you have them. We are trying to move away from specific lineup questions because we think that we will get all of those questions answered by going through these tiers. But any other specifics that you might want to know, please start getting them in the chat. We try our best to order them in the answer that they come in. Starting from the top, our first tier starts at $29.2 million with Oscar Piastri, then Lando Norris, then Max Verstappen at 27.3. So only a 3-driver tier. Ryan has started to name these tiers. Ryan, what are we calling this one?
This is the Groundhog tier. As Bill Murray famously says, it's Groundhog Day again. It's these 3 drivers again. And we're in Canada, so I figured groundhogs are relevant here.
You do get the occasional groundhog at the track.
Really?
You do, yeah.
So of these 3 drivers, right? I guess the first question is Max on sale? Rarely, and I don't know how many times. It's probably countable on one hand. Over the last 5 seasons, have we seen Max drop $2 million? So that's the opening question. Is now a time to buy Max Verstappen at $27.3 million? Finished 10th in Spain. Canada 2024 first place. FP1 this weekend first place. While Lando and Piastri were 7th and 14th in FP1 respectively. Obviously can't lean too much into FP1 results, but nonetheless, what do you guys think? Is now a time to pick up Max?
Yeah, I'm always rostering. It depends on your lineup. If like where you are, like with McLaren, I'm kind of throwing McLaren's FP1 results aside right now, and obviously still considering them a top performer potential. But Max at 27.3. That just makes sense, right? You're going to take Max 27.3 or Leclerc 26.9, or even Russell, Mr. Consistency 25.5. You're not talking about a tremendous amount of budget spend to go up to someone like Max. But if I have Piastri or if I have Norris, I'm not dropping them for Max. But if one of them's on cooldown, 2-race contract for Max, I'm fine with that.
Max is definitely on sale. Honestly, in my opinion, he should be serving a race ban this weekend, but the stewards are not quite in agreement. I mean, he took a swipe at George Russell. This is why he's on sale, actually. He got himself penalized by trying to drive into another car. And if he gets one more penalty point this month, he is going to get a race ban, just FYI. And then he has 11 penalty points right now, 12 and you get a ban. A couple of them expire at the end of the month, but then he's stuck with the rest of them until October. So one more slip up, that could even be like track limits. That could be like another a minor incident with another driver, and he's out next week. So just keep that in mind, that you might be stuck with, I don't even know who would they put in? Lawson, Hadjar, Iwasa,
I think
the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah,
I don't think Lawson or Hadjar want that seat.
Yeah.
No.
They might be cursed. Like, I'm good here.
Yeah.
I think they throw Ayumu Iwasa to the Wolves in that scenario. Anyway, he is at a discount. Just be aware that he could catch a ban at some point if you're signing him for a longer term. They have the pace. They showed the pace today. McLaren, let's see how they come out of FP2. I'm not selling yet, but if they have a bad FP2, then I get worried.
What are 8 race? So 8 race average. They're actually ordered correctly. So Piastri's 8 race average 165 points, fantasy points. Norris 163, Verstappen 161. So yeah, I think those are all priced very fairly. It is a rarity that you get a blue chip driver like that in the top 3 on sale. And a lot of this comes down to risk you're willing to take, where you are at in your league, right? Somebody asked a question. They said, for somebody near the bottom of the league with around 104 million, would you go for points or value? I don't know, it's a hard question. There's still a lot of the season left. So probably value. I mean, that's what's going to ultimately allow you to catch up. There's some nuance, right? How far behind are you? How many people are in the league? All that sort of stuff. But I think, yeah.
There's a lot of discounts available this week where if things go the right way, you can pick up a bunch of value and some additional points because improvement points are a thing as well. These value increases are based on outperforming where you were. And that's also where you get more points, outperforming how you've been performing. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of lineups you can make with 104 million or even just 100 million if you're brand new to our game that are going to gain value and are going to put up a competitive number of points and set you up well for Austria, for Silverstone, for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Shall we move on to the second tier? Oh, Mike, you have something you want to say?
I was just gonna give a note of encouragement to the $104 million player. There's a potential $4-6 million swing here on your lineup, and then once you get an additional 4 to 6 million, you're right in the fighting zone of having very competitive lineups to lineups that are much more expensive. So
Yeah,
keep
agreed.
at it.
But if things fall the right way, the perfect lineup could be the lineup that costs about that much money.
Exactly.
It might not be the $120 million lineup, especially if somebody has a problem, which is usually how you have people on sale, like Verstappen, if somebody has a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And Canada does produce problems. There is a wall that is called the Wall of Champions. You know why they call it that? Because a lot of champions have run into it over the years.
Let's see. Let's move on to tier 2, also 3 drivers. At the top of this tier, we have Leclerc at 26.9 million. Russell, 25.5 million, and Hamilton at 23.2 million. Ryan, hit us.
The Hurricane Prep tier. There's a lot of talk about our McLaren sandbagging. Who knows? If they're not, sandbags also extremely important for Hurricane Prep. If they're not, there's a huge storm brewing, and these guys are going to be in the mix if McLaren are not as strong as they have been in the past, and if those practice times are indicative, which we have no idea. But if McLaren are slow, these are the 3 guys to look at because they will move up.
Leclerc 10th in FP1, Russell 4th, Hamilton 5th. In terms of fantasy points average, we have Leclerc at 140, 8 races. This is 2025 average, I believe I'm looking at. Russell 155, Hamilton 133. So the discount maybe just based off points alone looks like Russell. But all of these feel low upsidey to me, if that's a word I can use.
Yeah. So like for example, like I like rostering Russell for his typical consistency he's had this season and the points he's able to generate. But like that's on an expensive lineup where I already have Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, and then I'm also rostering Russell on that. But otherwise, if on my lineups that don't have as much budget, this is an area where I'm skipping, right? Because you're not going to get as many points. You're likely not going to get as many points as Piastri, Norris, or Verstappen are going to net you, and they're still expensive. And there's lots of value down the table.
I think Hamilton's potentially playable as a value proposition. Ferrari looked okay in practice. If that holds in the afternoon session, then I'm more enthusiastic about Hamilton, especially since he's not the one who destroyed his car. And I don't think they'll be reappropriating any parts if they have any shortages. I don't think this is Williams. So, Hamilton is an intriguing choice in this tier. Russell, great for consistency. We've already seen with Leclerc that little bit of volatility where like you get it wrong and maybe you end up in the wall. But they seem to have some pace, but there may be better bargains available.
Yeah, and I think these drivers are so dependent. That's why the tier explanation featured McLaren heavily. These drivers are so dependent on what is McLaren this weekend. If McLaren is normal McLaren, then these 3 are potentially untouchable. Mm-hmm. But if there's an opportunity there, these are the 3 they're going to slot up and take it. So I don't know, between the 3 of them, it probably is Hamilton, like William said, just because of that price point. You're getting a little more bang for your buck, and he has had success here. Also, Leclerc went off in FP1 and sustained some damage. It's unclear if he'll be ready to go for FP2, but that's something to watch out for.
Well, it's like the whole left side of the car. I think my real question is, what components do they have? Like, is it going to be the same car? I honestly don't know what spares they have.
Next tier, only 2 drivers in the next tier. We have Isaac Hadjar and Alex Albon. Ryan, hit us. What's this 2-tier name or 2-driver tier name?
This is the obnoxious high-rise crane tier. This is like you have construction going on next to your building. It's like you're like, I hope this building isn't too high. It's going to block my view. And the crane just keeps going. They just keep building and building and building. I thought Hadjar and Albon reached the ceiling, but we're not at the top floor yet. Apparently, it's just going to.
I think Hadjar is now out of talent driver eligibility.
Yes.
Can you believe that? Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at that chart. That is Isaac Hadjar's salary this year. I have I literally don't think one time since the existence of GridRival I've seen a Formula One driver salary chart do that for every race this season. 8 race. How many races are we in? 9?
This is round
This
10
is
that
10.
we're going into.
That is insanity.
Hadjar to the moon.
Yeah, seriously.
Never mind to Australia. Yeah, so the problem is the only cars left in front of him are Ferraris, McLarens, Max, and Russell. And I don't know that the Racing Bull car is going to be faster than any of those guys. So the ceiling may be approaching. Like, I don't know off the top of my head where the 7th place fantasy value slot is, but we got to be getting close.
His last 3 race finishes have been 9th, 6th, and 7th. He is now ranked from a fantasy perspective in 7th. There's just not. I mean, I don't know if I want to even say it again. I keep saying it, but
he's consistently scoring points, but he's not a podium threat.
But either way, I'm done.
To keep making headway, you have to be a podium threat, which that car just isn't.
I mean, I'm done calling the ceiling on these two. I think I have multiple times and been wrong every single time. And the Williams looked incredibly fast in practice today. So who knows what that has up its sleeve? Like, you could argue Albon probably is at a good price after dropping $2 million last week. I don't think I would have ever said that until watching FP1 this morning. And then Hadjar still seems to just be finding speed everywhere he goes. And he looked strong again in FP1 and put together a very solid performance in Spain.
Yeah, but when talking about the ceiling, that doesn't mean don't roster these guys, right? So if looking at the chart here, so you have Hadjar 18.5, Albon 18.2, 6th and 2nd in FP1. I have a feeling that these two are going to be performers this weekend. I'm trusting I'm not trusting the McLaren FP1 data. I am trusting the V-Carbon Williams FP1 data a little bit more. And for the points that they can bring in for 18.5, 18.2, that's why I like these drivers a little bit more than I like Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton. There's more improvement points to be had. There's with Hadjar, there's a lot of beating teammate points that would be available. Like if Leclerc and Hamilton are 2 or 3 positions away from each other, Hadjar might be 6+. So there's some other reasons, not just value, like them being at the top of their potential value to then roster them. We call Russell Mr. Consistency, but if you look at Hadjar, that graph goes up and to the right. But if he just remains consistent and that's the kind of peak of the performance of the car, then that graph just goes flat for the remainder of the season until the car improves or he crashes.
I would, just to take the other side of that coin, with both of these guys, Hadjar and Albon, I would say that those are very much 2-car teams, whereas I've constantly called Red Bull a 1-car team for a couple of years now. The gap to the teammates isn't as big, especially now that Lawson is catching up now that he's back in the Racing Bulls for a few weeks now. I think that I'm more intrigued by these guys' teammates since they are talent eligible. I'm also more intrigued by Racing Bulls and Williams as constructors because, like I said, they're 2-car teams. You can expect points from both cars pretty often, like good points. And I also really hate all the teams that are below them in terms of value. So I'm probably staying away from these drivers just because I might like their teammates or their constructor better as a use of my money.
Oh, come on. The amount of people who are going to triple Williams this weekend.
Yeah, that is definitely a play. Like there are people who may be all in on Williams, and if this is real pace, then that's the way to go. If you do want to diversify a little bit, maybe you don't triple up. Maybe you leave off the expensive driver and you take the talent driver and you take the constructor.
Noteworthy is that Alex Albon did DNF the last race and also DNF'd last Canadian GP.
Somebody ran into
So,
him, though.
Yeah. His salary still dropped on GridRival, though.
Yeah, that's why he's a bargain. Somebody ran into him.
Okay, are we ready for the next tier? 5 drivers. We got Kimi Antonelli, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly between 15.8 and 13.3 million. Ryan, what is this one called?
This is the Vin Diesel tier. We've got some Fast and Furious cars here, and much like Vin Diesel being the most important character in the Fast and Furious franchise, your most important driver is likely to come from this tier this week, because I believe it will be your talent driver, and there are some very interesting decisions to make here.
It's the wildest thing to see that for a talent driver selection, you could select a Mercedes, you could select a Red Bull, but the best choice might be a Williams. That feels.
I think the best choice is a Williams.
Yeah.
I like Sainz. I probably like Sainz the best. That said, we had somebody ask why is Antonelli's value where he is. So last week he blew an engine, and the week before that, Mercedes Ferrari'd the strategy. So that's why he lost all that money. And it's like I think he's better than where he's ranked right now, I think. And he's a potential flyer for talent driver. I'll say that. He's not beating Russell unless Russell has a problem, but yeah, Antonelli's a bargain. I just wanted to call that out since one of our viewers did. It was unfortunately I don't see his name in front of me right away.
It's Cream Guzzler.
I was just gonna say you might not want to say it out
Yeah,
loud.
great.
Yeah, no, made a good point there. So
Wow.
yeah, Antonelli's interesting. I think I like Sainz the best. I'm not in on Aston. I'm not in on Alpine, which like Alpine is at least a 1-car team. So maybe Gasly takes a whole load of teammate points and he has another big jump in value.
Well, to that point, William.
Everyone's faster.
To that point, William, Aston Martin, Red Bull, Alpine, all 1-car teams here. So like there's a lot of teammate points to be had on the driver selection here. So I think, was it Tipsy Socks is saying to triple Alpine? Okay. A lot of people are going to go with that strategy. Most likely. Let's see what FP2 and FP3
I don't
does.
want Colapinto. I don't want Colapinto.
Who wants to triple Alpine?
Oh, did I say triple Alpine? Sorry, triple Williams.
Williams.
All right, it's Friday. It's been a long week. Give me a break. They're going to triple Williams. But here's the thing: is if you take Williams as a constructor, constructors can gain or lose 3 million versus a driver's 2 million, right? So you might want to take Sainz Williams and then pick up another one driver team from this, because you're going to get all those extra beating teammate points. That's where like selecting a Gasly makes sense. Selecting an Alonso makes sense, because there's a really good chance Colapinto and Stroll are going to be 19th and 20th.
I actually don't know that the gap's going to be that big between Alonso and Stroll. Assuming Stroll's wrist doesn't hurt too much this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hopefully, he's staying off the bike. Hopefully, there's no temper tantrums happening, if you believe the rumors. If Stroll keeps the car in one piece, which is a big if, I don't think there's actually that big of a gap there, which is another reason I'm just totally not excited with Alonso this week.
Yeah, I think even the weird thing between Antonelli and Sainz is short versus long term. I think this week they're very equal footing. I probably lean towards Sainz, but if I had to choose one to take a long contract on, I think I'd rather go long on Antonelli. I just think Mercedes has way more upsides, way more potential there. And the thing with Sainz, like Williams seems to be up and down based on track a little bit more than Mercedes does. I think Mercedes is going to give you a little more consistency, and it's just a better car overall. But I think for this week alone so far, I'd be leaning towards Science just based on what we saw earlier today, but keep a close eye on FP2 and FP3. I actually think you can probably do worse than having both of them this weekend.
Interesting. All right, you ready for the next tier? By the way, I turned down my volume. I think some people were saying that my volume is too loud. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Third tier, fourth tier, no, fifth. I was close. We got Liam Lawson, 12.7 million, Esteban Ocon, 12.1, Nico Hulkenberg, 11.2. Ryan, hit us.
Cops and robbers. Do you follow the law with Liam Lawson? Is Hulkenberg a fraud after what happened in Spain with a P5? Who knows? And then Ocon just whatever. He stinks. Haas stinks. He's just kind of stuck in here. I didn't really know how to tear this one out. So the Haas's are just floating around and they're annoying. So throw them in jail too.
Ocon did drop 2 million. Who's the standout here?
Lawson.
It feels like Lawson to me, but then Kick has had this bizarre. I don't know.
Hulkenberg got propped up a lot last week with the penalties and the safety car happening at the right time. That was not a genuine fifth place finish. That was more like a freak finish, which is why I'm actually a seller on Hulkenberg this week.
It was a genuine, very good finish, though.
It was a points finish.
Yes,
it was a points finish. It was not a fifth place finish, but it was a points finish.
Right, but if you told someone you can get a P10 out of Hulkenberg, you're taking that every single time. So it's an extremely good result, and then obviously padded up by a few other things out of his control. But yeah, I don't know.
They're not scoring points every week.
Yeah, that car above 10 million, either driver, probably not for me. But they looked pretty rough earlier today too. So for what it's worth.
One word of warning about Lawson: he did take his fourth internal combustion engine today, which is the last one before you start incurring penalties, which might be a slightly longer term concern, but just know that. But Lawson's still by far the best of this tier. And I think he's going to be in a lot of lineups. He's, like I said before, he's catching up to Hadjar. And if they get close to parity, there's a lot of upside for Lawson looking at where Hadjar's been for a while now.
Yeah, very true. 8th place in FP1. 11th place in Spain. So he is getting there. Any other comments here?
I do want to.
Are we recommending avoid Esteban Ocon?
Always.
I'm not touching Haas or Sauber.
Agreed.
All right. Final tier, and then we'll get into constructor tiers. We got Ollie Behrman, 9.5 million. Franco Colapinto, 8.7. Bortoletto, 7.7. Lance Stroll, 6.7. Is this the 7 tier? What's the name of this one, Ryan?
Canna do or don't. They speak French up there, so de kind of works. But you might, and the don't part of it is all of these guys aren't very good, so you might want to try and avoid them if you have enough lineup value to do so. And obviously Lance Stroll is Canadian, so I just really want to lean into a little Canada.
If memory serves me, and I think William is the one on this call that seems to have the best recollection of previous events going back years and years. I feel like Lance Stroll has a notoriously terrible record at his home event. Am I accurate?
Good in Canada.
We can pull this up very, very easily.
He's a Canadian hero.
But it is kind of a weird thing with like drivers at their home race. Like sometimes that could be not so great. I'm getting there. Trying to find
he is now the lowest ranked driver on the game.
Yeah. So
okay. So here's here's his career results in Canada. 9th place driving for Williams. Retired. 9th. That was for what is now Aston Martin. They were then called Racing Point. There was no Canada in 2020. There was no Canada in 2021. Then 10th, 9th, 7th. Yeah, so he actually has put up some results at his home track, despite all the walls that it has.
Yeah. So
What would you guys call that?
a stroller coaster. That's
That is a
perfect.
stroller coaster, and I'm on the stroller coaster. If there's
Yeah.
anybody
Are
on
you
this
really?
tier, if there's anyone on this tier I'm taking, it's Stroll. So
I just got off of it. I just got off
yeah,
when
based
he
on
lost
his
one.
based on his pace, and he was not last in practice. Aston is not last. Like he's ahead of the Saubers, he's ahead of Haas, he's ahead of Colapinto. If he can keep the car in one piece, he's going to be very much not last on Sunday, and also tomorrow in qualifying for that matter. I think Stroll could be a very easy 2 million if he can just keep the car in one piece. Hence his
Lance Stroll is the only driver I want once you get below Lawson's price point. I want him more.
Agreed.
Ocon, Hulkenberg, Behrman, Colapinto, Bortoletto. I think Lance Stroll, regardless of price, is the best choice. And then you throw in that he's the cheapest out of all of them. I think it's almost a no-brainer if you need someone at the bottom, a cheap driver to fill out your lineup. Like I think it's Lance Stroll 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, I also agree. And here's a tip for anyone who has like a lower team value right now. So the bottom tier drivers historically in the game, like comparative to now, are expensive. Like typically every season there's someone 4, 5, 6 million, but we're kind of getting out of that territory here with the cheapest Lance Stroll being 6, 7. If you sign Lance, 2-race contract minimum, because you're gonna have to take a ride on this roller coaster. Taking a 1-race flyer on Lance is not a good move, because if he does crash or doesn't perform, and he can still lose value from 6, 7. Then if you're locked out of the cheapest driver, there's a really good chance you're paying drop fees to have to run a full roster for the next race. So if you're taking whenever you're taking the cheapest driver in the game, make sure when their contract is rolling off, you have other contracts rolling off too, so you can rebalance your lineup. So for anyone who keeps watching these things over and over and over, I do suggest signing previously the cheapest Bortoletto for the points to value ratio. That is true for Stroll. It's the same thing we say for Bortoletto. We're just saying it for Stroll now. If he can finish the race, there's great points to value and there's great potential for value add. Just don't screw up your contract lengths.
I could justify signing him for at least 2 races simply because there's at least 2 races of value growth there.
Yeah.
If he can just consistently beat the Saubers and the Haas's. That's all he has to do. Beat Sauber and Haas.
Yeah, but that's all he has to do is be consistent. And it just makes me nervous to hope that will happen over a period of 2 races.
It's all we need, Lance. 2 races. 2 races. All we need.
Two in a row. Two in a row sounds. That makes me nervous. Going up, going net up after maybe 4 or 5, I feel like less nervous. But you got to account for the stroller coasterness. Like it never is 2 races up in a row. I mean, it's so rare.
Well, with where he's priced right now, he only has to finish like 15th, 16th in fantasy points to retain or gain value. It is very doable with who he's competing against at this rung, right? So that's the pitch for Lance Stroll. But he needs to hold it together for 2 races. And
if Alonso blows an engine, then you've struck gold with teammate points, which we've seen that happen already.
Yeah.
And that's actually the variable with them, and McLaren and Williams, like all Mercedes powered cars. We've seen a few blown Mercedes engines this year.
Let's see. Should we do some questions before we get into constructors?
Yeah. What questions we got?
Let's see. We got, should I sell Gasly with 1 week left to buy anyone else from Alonso down?
I would
No.
Sell Gasly.
Potentially,
I don't think so, man.
If you are selling him, I think Lawson's probably the only guy who I would take in place of him. But I think, rather have Gasly. At worst, I think they're pretty even. So I wouldn't pay the fee.
It's not worth the fee. It's definitely not worth the fee. I'd take the 1 more week of Gasly, and then if we want Lawson next race, then we take Lawson then. I just don't think that it's going to be worth paying the drop fee.
With how the mechanics of the game work, Lawson can beat Gasly in race finish position, but Gasly, because his teammate is Cole Pinto, can still outscore Lawson. So like it's just not. I don't think it's a good move. I would keep Gasly for the one more race.
Yeah, he can score points. His teammate can't. That's a good situation for Gasly in our fantasy game. Watch Cole Pinto score points now that I've said that.
He has his breakout race of the season.
He channels Juan Manuel Fangio and scores Argentina's first win in a gajillion years.
And Rux, are we worried about rookies at this track?
A little bit.
I don't. I mean, I would say a little bit. I don't feel as worried about rookies here as I do in some certain street courses. Canada has some tight spots, specifically the Champions Wall, but I don't know. I'm not as nervous about rookies at this one.
No, and there's tracks to be worried about rookies, but also as we're at race 10 at this point, like you get 10 F1 races under your belt, you're starting to shake off some rookie rust as well. And we were talking about Hadjar and Antonelli, Lawson all being potential good picks depending on where your lineup is. So I would say you don't have to avoid rookies on this.
There are also a few more places to beat yourself compared to, say, the Middle Eastern tracks that they start the year at, since there's a bit more grass and high carbing and all that.
Let's move to constructors. 4 constructor tiers. One of them is really not a tier. It is a team all in their own, which is currently McLaren. Do you have a tier or a name for this one, Ryan?
No, I didn't name the constructors. It's been a busy day.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I
so
poured
McLaren,
all my creative energy into the driver tiers.
We are getting into there's a sprint race in the next 5 events, isn't there?
I believe Spa is the next sprint race, which let's look at the F1 schedule. And that would be, let's see, Canada, Austria, England, Belgium. So 4 races from now, that's a sprint. And then I think the remaining sprints are all the back ends of the year. Like I think it's US, Brazil, Qatar again, like it was last year. Don't hold me to that.
Let's see here. I'm just looking at real quick teams. McLaren. McLaren has the highest season average of fantasy points of any element on the game at 171 points. So the next highest is Piastri at 165. Is there any reason, man? We typically seem to make value plays for constructor amongst this group. Like we're usually not picking blue chip constructors. Is there any reason you would be adding McLaren?
You just have so much money. You have so much money. You're so rich. Good for you.
And I think there have been other weeks where I think you can rationalize it a little more. I don't know how true FP1 is of McLaren's pace, but why would you want to take a chance at 30 million when the last few weeks they've been 1-2, 1-2, 1-2? That's when you can maybe justify it a little more. I don't really want any part of it if there's any uncertainty, which there is a little bit of it at the very least.
McLaren is at the value ceiling. That's why we've seen them at 30 million for so many weeks. They literally can't go any higher. The moment they are not first in fantasy points among constructors, they will lose value. And that's just a matter of somebody having a problem. And that could happen in Canada. Or it could just be a simple lack of pace because you have the track or something like that. FP2 will be a little bit more telling. But right now, if you told me right now, game's going to lock in an hour, who's your constructor? It's not McLaren.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And Mike, Ryan, any thoughts on McLaren?
No, not for this race.
I think Mike nailed it. I mean, if you have $135 million team value, you're like kind of at a spot of stability with team value for the year. which I thought I was about 2 races ago, and now I'm back to not at all. Then I think that would be the scenario that you might consider adding McLaren. Let's see, tier 2, Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull. Is anyone excited about that tier? Or sorry, not excited. What was the word I was thinking for? Surprised. Is anyone surprised about that tier? Um, let's see, Ferrari 25 million, Mercedes 21.7, Red Bull 20.8. Mercedes maybe seems like a of these three, right? Because Antonelli had an unfortunate race last event. On the flip side of that, Red Bull, because of Max's result, also dropped 1.5 million. So maybe they're on a slight discount too. But any thoughts here?
Mercedes, if anything, in this tier is what I would go with. Just because if you look at Ferrari's at 25, their ceiling is probably 26, 27, 27.5 at the best. Like I don't like that. Whereas Mercedes, you could spend 21.7, ceiling is probably 25, 26. So I would rather go Mercedes. And at this price tier with Red Bull, sorry, Yuki, you can't spend 20.8 million on a one driver team. Not when the tier below you has two driver teams for a significant discount where you're going to get points in value. So, but I would be interested to hear if a player has Mercedes right now, or a player is considering signing Mercedes right now. I think that'd be like you're not like rich, but you've got money. You're 130 million, 132 million in team value, and you want to keep the points more than you want to gain value, like you might with the tier below us.
Of the 10 constructors, there are 4 of them that I would consider rostering, and Mercedes is one of them.
Yeah, interesting. Any thoughts, Ryan? Anything from you?
No, not really. I don't really want any of these high-priced constructors. I agree that if you're going to take one, it probably is Mercedes. Just because, why would you want anybody else? And I think when we get into this next tier, there's going to be a lot more positive feedback from the 4 of us than we've said so far.
Okay, tier 3, two constructors. We got VCarb and Williams. Almost identical in salaries, 17.5 and 17.4 respectively. Williams dropped 2.3 million after the last event. VCarb went up 1.3 million. So something to consider as far as upside goes. Who has more upside on this team? These teams between the two.
Slightly more for Williams, just given that they have more experienced drivers and a slightly faster car, like over the way, not just practice today, but over the last few weeks, Williams has seemed just a little bit faster than Racing Bulls. So if Williams can avoid trouble this week, they're going to be the better choice. I said there's 4 constructors I would roster. Racing Bulls and Williams are 2 of them. So we have Mercedes, Racing Bulls, and Williams. And I'll let you all guess what the last one is.
Do you want us to guess now or when we get to that tier?
No, when we get there. Get there. I'm trying to put a thought into chat's minds.
Yeah.
Trying to engage with you, all of our viewers.
Guess what's okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, okay, so everyone in your league, after like either now or before or after FP2, look at the league adoption stats in your league for VCarb and Williams. It's probably going to be close to 50-50, both from people who already have them on contract or people going to sign them now. Now, one might be the right answer, right? Williams might have more pace than VCarb and have a higher result here. But if you're seeing in your league adoption stats in your league, like 60, 70%, anything over above 50% of your league is on Williams right now, you have to make a decision of push or pass. So push meaning you have to sign Williams just to get the same points and same value everyone else in your league is getting as a defensive move. Or if you do think VCarb or another constructor is going to outperform them, then you do that. And then if everyone else has Williams and you don't, you get points and value no one else gets. Who that is, I'm not sure. I'm very hot on Williams and also VCarb for Canada. Most of my lineups are going to be rostering one of those 2 or already have them from prior races.
Yeah, I think Williams is the better play this week. But I actually have a different take on who has the higher ceiling. I think VCarb does. I think if you play this out 100 times, I think more than 50% of the time Williams will outscore VCarb. But I think Albon and Sainz are pretty known commodities. Like, they'll increase a little bit. They're probably better overall. But I think Hadjar and Lawson, like Hadjar, the sky could be the limit. We don't know. And Lawson seems to really be putting it together. He's a cheaper driver right now. I think he has more room to grow. I think VCarb has a higher ceiling than Williams does, but I believe that, Williams is the safer pick and they'll probably score more points more often. But the highest potential, I think, lies with VCarb.
And a way to also play that to everyone listening is, we were talking about people are going to triple Williams a lot this weekend, right? You can go VCarb constructor, roster Albon Sainz, right? Like you can get all the points, get all the points that way. Or you could do the inverse. You could do Hadjar Lawson and then take Williams as your constructor. Those are like really clever ways to stack the lineup in your favor for these like mid-price drivers who by all measures look like they're going to have a good race weekend. So that would be a way that I would look at it.
Gary Ferguson asked, if I sign Williams this week, how many races should I sign them for? I generally don't like long-term constructors.
Yeah.
For me, like I'm almost always 3 races. If I think someone's really undervalued, and I think Williams is definitely has upside. I don't think it has 5 races worth of upside, especially with a sprint race 4 from now.
Yeah, 3 is probably the sweet spot just because of that sprint race. Then we can go cheap constructor that week and spend a little bit more on drivers who will score points for sprint position where constructors don't. And Williams, like they'll hit the plateau again and they'll be pretty consistent again. Like maybe they could pass Racing Bulls. I don't know if there's anyone they can pass after Racing Bulls in terms of value. Maybe Red Bull if Sonoda continues to be a disaster, or if Max catches a ban, or they otherwise struggle somehow.
Mm-hmm. I would say if you have under $120 million in team value, locking up Williams or VCarb for 3 races is a very safe move because the 4th race is a sprint. You're going to probably want to jump to a cheaper constructor at that point to stack drivers who score sprint points where constructors don't. So 3 would be the max because, and I don't want to we'll get into it when we get into the next list. I think there's only 1 constructor, 1.5 constructors below Williams right now that are worth signing. So like I would take VCarb or Williams for a 2-race contract right now. Probably not a 1.
And when we get to Belgium, I think Sauber will come back down to earth by then, and that's your cheap constructor for the sprint race.
Exactly.
I like that strategy. Let's go to the last tier. We got 4 drivers. Haas, 11.5 million, down 1.3 after the last event. Kick Sauber, 10.7, up 2.7. Aston Martin at 9.9 and Alpine at 9.7. Somebody asked earlier, where was it? There was a tripling. Yeah, Aston. Is tripling Aston for 1 race worth the risk for the value they could gain? Maybe worth the risk is, yeah. Maybe worth the risk is the wrong question, but is there enough upside that if things went well for Aston,
I don't
you should
think
consider
so.
this?
So Aston is the 4th constructor that I would roster. Congratulations to anybody who had that. So I of these 4 constructors, Aston's the only one I'd consider rostering here because they are at least sorry, a little fly in my face there. Aston's at least a 2-car-ish team. Like it's not quite as one-sided as Alpine. We know Stroll is, or we're pretty sure Stroll is going to race. And so he'll score a lot more points than he did last week simply by taking part in the race. I think Alonso is going to be lucky if he scores points this weekend. So, like, it's not a huge upside. I don't want Alonso. So do we triple Aston? I think the answer is no. But if you want to give me Aston and Stroll, I could get on board with that. And maybe you could do 2 to 3 races of Stroll. I don't know that I want Aston for more than one.
Yeah.
The other constructors I don't like. I'm not going to spend more for Sauber than I am for Aston, despite last week. I'm not touching Haas. You've heard me beat Alpine to death.
Yeah. The pitch for having Aston as a constructor is that it is very likely statistically that they keep or gain a little bit of value at the very least, because there's 3 other constructors that are likely to score less points. And how the constructor salary table works, I believe I should have looked it up. I think Aston only has to be third last to keep value / gain a little bit of value. So as long as Alpine and Haas, or Sauber and Haas, or Sauber and Alpine are below them, it's a safe bet. But then, of course, if you're talking about tripling Alpine, you're very bullish on Alpine. Yeah, then there could be a lot of upside for tripling Aston. But I side with William here. If I'm tripling anyone based on the data we have right now, it's Williams, it's VCarb, it's not Aston. Aston would be my third choice to do a triple with right now.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to take on my Aston exposure through just having Lance Stroll. I think I want Stroll on my roster. I think he's a great price point. I don't feel the need to also roster Aston as a constructor, and I really don't think. I think Alonso, you get a P11, P12, maybe he'll run, or he'll be invisible all day and be like, oh, he almost scored in the points. I don't think there's really much room for him to grow. I don't think he's a great value play, and he'll just get you minimal points. Where Stroll, there's more of that upside. So I'm taking on my Aston exposure through just Lance Stroll.
Relevant
I
question.
like Aston. I'm sorry. I like Aston if I don't have the budget to go better than Aston. Like if I'm more closer to 100 million than 110, then I take Aston. Otherwise, I agree. I go with the better constructor, and I just stick with Stroll.
So a non-fantasy question is, do you guys think Lawrence Stroll wants his son on his team more than he wants his team to win?
Yes.
That's been
He
played
does,
out, I think,
but does
through
Honda?
years.
That's the question next year.
The fact
We
he's
will
on the
see.
team
Honda's going to
answers that
shove him out
question.
the door. Sorry.
Okay, William.
I think Honda shoves him out the door next year or the year after.
Forces him out.
Yeah. I mean, Lawrence Stroll wants him on the team until he gets sick of it, but I think Honda pushes him out the door. That's my prediction. And then Honda quits because Honda likes quitting things.
They like to make a comeback.
They've
we
quit
have
F1 3 different times in my lifetime.
Yeah, they like the comeback. They like the hype. They like to make a comeback. Okay, we have 7 minutes left. William, I believe due to time constraints, you were the only one of the 4 of us that put together your $100 million lineup. Am I correct?
I'm the only one that did my homework, apparently.
You are.
I have a lineup. It's a fun one, but yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Why don't we start with?
Yeah, we can compare these lineups.
Let's start with Mike since
Okay,
he says his is fun.
Okay.
No,
let's go with the fun first.
Okay, fun first. Okay. So 95.3 million of my $100 million budget. Verstappen, Antonelli, Lawson, Sainz, Stroll, Williams. I'm leaving myself just a little bit of room to go up. So 95, I'm using 95.3. If I could swap out Verstappen for McLaren, and I could swap out Antonelli for someone higher. But I think you could spend 95.3 million and come out of this event gaining a lot of value and a decent haul of points.
So I spent 98.3, and I have similar confidence that I'm going to gain value and gain points. I have Verstappen, I have Hamilton, and then Antonelli, Sainz talent driver, Stroll, and Aston Martin. That's 98.3 million.
Interesting. There you have it.
I like Sainz slightly better as talent driver than Antonelli. Sainz has a better chance of beating his teammate. Antonelli only beats his teammate if his teammate has a problem. Yeah, so that's why I choose the slightly cheaper talent driver. Stroll could be an intriguing choice. Like if somehow they look better in P2, like I don't know what Stroll's improvement index is right now, but maybe Stroll is potentially on for some improvement points. I honestly don't know that number though. You'd have to check in the app. But I think Sainz is still probably the most stable choice there. I did also consider Lawson. I decided to go with Sainz. I think the ceiling is slightly higher for Williams.
Any closing thoughts, gentlemen, with 5 minutes to go?
I have a closing thought. I mean, maybe the last Canada GP that gets put on the big screen with the sound on, with next year being head to head potentially with the Indy 500, that might be relegated to the iPad or the laptop screen. With the Indy 500 on the big screen.
Yeah, given the choice, I'd have the Indy 500 on my big screen, not just because we're the official fantasy game of IndyCar, but because the Indy 500s are a really freaking good show. And at least compared to most F1, I love F1, don't get me wrong, but the Indy 500 is special. And it is absolutely foolish to be racing potentially on top of the Indy 500. And I really don't understand. You wanted to bring Miami and Canada together. That makes sense. Less shipping, but you still have them 3 weeks apart.
Yeah, it's
you have all the people still dragging themselves back and forth across the ocean.
Maybe these leagues could work together and not have overlapping events. Probably would not be that hard, but it's fun to dream.
More likely, F1 dreams of a dead IndyCar, and that makes me sad because I think IndyCar has the better racing product. Watch IndyCar this weekend. They're at Gateway on Sunday night. Watch that too, after you've watched all the other races.
On that note, we thank you all for joining. We hope that you enjoy the race this weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again in short order. Make sure to invite your friends to GridRival if they're not already on it. We're gonna have some exciting stuff being rolling out for our Leeds game over the next couple of weeks that we'll be able to talk about soon. So again, thanks for coming, and we hope everybody enjoys the race this weekend. We will see you soon. We are finished. Imagine a world that doesn't revolve around the USA. That was someone's comment.